Welcome, everyone. This is one of our final Tuesday at 2s. We have one more next week at the Bay County Public Library. So without further ado, I'm going to switch it over to Dr. Adam Kaeser. He is a biologist with U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and this is the Box Turtle Project of Bay County.
So my day job is working as a biologist with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, but the project that I'm going to talk to you about today is kind of a side project, a volunteer type thing, and not real official business of the service. Before I talk about the project, though, I want to introduce you to the species that we are studying. And the first thing I want to do is introduce you to the Gulf Coast box turtle, which is one of 4 subspecies of eastern box turtle found in North America. The Gulf Coast box turtle ranges across the panhandle of Florida and southern portions of Mississippi, Alabama, and Louisiana. And it is the subspecies that is most predominant in our area. As the Latin epithet major suggests, this is the largest of the 4 members of the species. And it's also been described as the most aquatic of these 4 subspecies, commonly found in marshy, swampy, and wet areas. So box turtles start out as hatchlings. They emerge from eggs that are deposited in a shallow nest. They're only about the size of a little bit larger than a quarter. You can pick them up with 2 fingers. And within the first few years, they grow into juvenile turtles. At this point in time, they can close themselves entirely within the shell, which is what gives the box turtle its name, by closing at the hinge here on the plastron. They also begin to develop their shell patterning, but that's not fully developed until they reach adulthood. For male box turtles, this isn't until ages 5 or 6. And at this point, adult males can be distinguished from females using a variety of characteristics. So males are generally larger than females at maturity. The carapace is wide and broad and flattened, the carapace being the top part of the shell. And the rear part of the shell is often flared. So these are the marginal scutes, which are these plates on the shell. And male Gulf Coast box turtles have flared marginal scutes. If you were to turn one over and look at the underside, the adult male has a concave plastron, which is this area in the middle here. You can't really see it in the photo, but concave is a bit of a depression there, and that helps with mating. Another interesting thing about Gulf Coast box turtles is that the males often have, but not always, have white patterning on the head. As you can see in this picture here, this male turtle, his head is almost entirely white. So female box turtles at maturity, which isn't reached till about age 7 or 8, are smaller. Their carapace is more rounded in dome shape, like half a football would be. And you see much less flare along the rear of the marginal scutes. If you were to turn one over, their plastron is completely flat, unlike the male that has the small concavity. All right, just a bit about box turtle ecology. So box turtles are considered ecological generalists in that they inhabit a variety of habitats and also can eat a variety of foods. But they do have some specific needs. And here in Florida, one of the things that they critically need are places to shelter during the heat of the day and also during the cold months of the winter. These sheltering areas often provide high levels of humidity. Box turtles, being low to the ground, don't like to be in dry areas. They like to remain in moist areas. So a suitable habitat has this high relative humidity. And so a canopied habitat is really important in keeping ground level moisture and favorable temperatures in that understory. So here's a picture that I grabbed from the Florida Friendly Landscaping Guide of a yard that has a nice thick canopy of trees, lots of thick understory vegetation, places for turtles to shelter. I'm sure this would be a nice happy home for several box turtles. Another thing about box turtles is that they possess several life history traits that I'll mention. Females don't produce many eggs over their lifetime, so they have low reproductive output. The eggs and hatchlings have a high mortality rate, so not many survive to becoming adults. And as a result, there's a low rate of recruitment of new turtles into a population in general. However, once reaching adulthood, there's a high survival rate among adults. And box turtles can live for decades, really, 20, 40, possibly longer. We're not even sure how long Gulf Coast box turtles live, but the longest box turtle ever recorded lived over 100 years, and that was one in the northeastern part of the country. They also reach maturity at a later age, which I mentioned earlier. So these characteristics are are found in species that possess an equilibrium life history strategy. And populations of these type of animals are favored by stable environmental conditions. However, they're sensitive to environmental disturbance and slow to recover from such disturbances because of these traits that they possess. So you might be wondering, what type of disturbance are we talking about that might be impactful to box turtles? Well, many of us lived through one such disturbance recently in the form of Hurricane Michael. Here's a look at one of our neighborhoods in Bay County. This is the south end of the Cove, 1 year before Hurricane Michael and 3 months after Hurricane Michael. So the type of disturbance that we're talking about here that is potentially impactful to box turtles and lots of other animals for that matter is a catastrophic loss of tree canopy, which was followed by quite a bit of understory disturbance as all of that debris was removed, piled up along the streets and then removed in the winter. Box turtles during the winter often seek shelter in woody debris piles and areas with lots of cover. And so it stands to reason that, we did lose some box turtles directly as a result of the hurricane and the immediate aftermath. But what remains to be determined is what will happen to our resident box turtle populations in the wake of the hurricane with all of the changes that have occurred. Here's a look at another neighborhood in Bay County. This is the north end of College Point, 1 year before the hurricane and sometime after. And it really can't be over-exaggerated how much the landscape has been changed by the storm. You can see just how much overhead canopy was lost in this neighborhood. And at this point, I want to tell a little story about a particular property in this neighborhood. And I'm going to draw your attention to this lot right here. This is a half-acre lot along Judson Street in North College Point. And this lot was heavily wooded and before the storm, and several of the trees were snapped. Let's look at the lot here on the right-hand side. The lot was recently sold, and a couple of our team members in the neighborhood found out that the lot was scheduled for clearing, to build a house there. And so they met with the landowner and then formed an alliance and worked together as he was clearing the property to search for turtles and attempt to rescue them from the property so they wouldn't be crushed by the machinery. And so over a period of several days, this past Thanksgiving, 20 box turtles were rescued from this half-acre lot. And that turns out to be a density of about 100 turtles per hectare. If that sounds like a lot to you, you're absolutely right, because typical box turtle density is about 14 to 16 turtles per hectare. So this small case study illustrates just how important the remaining green spaces are in our neighborhoods for some of the resident wildlife. So why study box turtles, Gulf Coast in particular? Well, very little is actually known about this subspecies, and it's thought to be in decline like the other subspecies of box turtles in many places. And there's virtually no studies of the Gulf Coast box turtle in residential areas. So the first good reason to study them is to improve our understanding of Gulf Coast box turtles and better manage for their survival in our community. But also it goes well beyond that, because as Florida continues to, the human population continues to expand in the state, more natural areas are being converted to residential areas. And I think there's a lot to be learned here if we are interested in keeping box turtles as part of our neighborhood wildlife. The second reason is that I think that by monitoring box turtles populations in our neighborhoods over time, we really have a chance to monitor the recovery of the natural elements of our neighborhood using box turtles as indicators. So 2 primary goals of Bay County Box Turtle Project. The first is a real scientific and research-based goal to assess the population status, trends, and habitat use of native box turtles in our neighborhoods. And we're going to achieve this by tagging box turtles and working with the public to perform long-term monitoring and observe these turtles over time. The second goal is a little less tangible, and that has to do with fostering community awareness and interest in the recovery of nature in our neighborhoods. How we're going to do this is by engaging the public and inviting them to participate in the project, and then providing education and outreach, such as these types of talks. All right, where are we working on this business of turtle tagging? Currently 3 neighborhoods in Bay County. The first is Lower Grand Lagoon out on the beach. The second is the Cove neighborhood that I've mentioned already. And the third is College Point. But as you can see from the map, and these are turtle locations that I'm showing you, We are also receiving reports of box turtle sightings in other areas and incorporating those in the database. So there's a possibility in the future that we may add teams to other neighborhoods. And so if you have box turtle sightings from other areas, we'll receive those and enter them in the database. And the people listed here are the tagging team members. These are people that are authorized to do the tagging activities involved in the project. That said, this project is really a citizen science type of project where the success is completely dependent on your participation. There aren't enough of the tagging team members to go around to observe these turtles, which are often very cryptic and hard to locate. So we're inviting and asking you to participate in keeping a lookout for box turtles and reporting them to us when you see them. And there is perhaps a third reason to study box turtles, and that is that they really evoke a natural curiosity in people and make ideal subjects for these type of studies. And how do I know this to be true? Well, here's a look at just a few of the turtles that I've observed in my neighborhood, which have apparently been the subjects of some local neighbors' own monitoring projects that are marking turtles in various ways with paint or fingernail polish. The one on the far right is even labeled number 10. I'm still looking for 1 through 9, but I think the basic question that most people are after when they're marking box turtles is, are you my box turtle? You know, it's just like one of those points of curiosity that a lot of people have. Well, herpetologists, or the professional biologists that study turtles, reptiles, generally mark turtles traditionally by using a triangular file to notch the scutes, which is actually creating a permanent mark in the bone of the animal. Early on, we decided this would be far too complicated and challenging for the tagging team to keep up with, because you're using a system where the marginal scutes are labeled and various combinations of the notching identifies the individual. But furthermore, it'd be very difficult for members of the public to recognize these marks and report them to us. So what are we doing instead? We've adopted an alternative method of tagging box turtles, and this is one that's been in use at our field office for tagging freshwater mussels. We're using a small vinyl tag. It's about the size of a Tic Tac, and it's simply being affixed to the shell in the lower right-hand corner with super glue gel. And this is what it would look like if you encountered a turtle with a tag. We're using yellow tags at the moment, but they might come in different colors in the future. But it's just a small yellow tag, and it has a letter and 3 numbers. And this is generally where you would look for it on the turtle. The alternative tagging location is on the other side in the rear. This was not a turtle that died after tagging. It was a shell that someone found that we're just using for demonstrations. How does Bay County box turtle work? So if a team member encounters a box turtle while out running, which is common, the turtle is measured and tagged, and a variety of other data is recorded on the data sheet that I'm showing you on the right-hand side here. And it's also given a name. Then the turtle is released at the exact location it was found. This is a really important thing to do, which I'll explain later. And then lastly, the data is then entered into a database by one of the tagging team members. So what happens if you encounter a box turtle? Maybe you're out walking a dog and you see a turtle. All right, doesn't matter whether it's tagged or untagged. What we're inviting you to do is to pull out your cell phone, which most people carry anymore, open up the camera and get a close-up picture of the carapace of the box turtle, the carapace being the top of the shell. You want to center the photo of the camera directly over the turtle so that the turtle is in the middle of the viewfinder with a little bit of space around the sides in case it needs to be centered. And you want to try to get a shot in unfiltered lights. There's not a lot of sun glare on the turtle. If you have to move it into a little area of shade, that might be helpful. All right, after taking the photo, check to see if it has a tag. Again, it doesn't matter if it doesn't. And all you need to do is note the following 4 key pieces of information: the date, the time, the nearest address to where the turtle is being spotted, and the tag ID number if it has one. Now, at least 3 of these pieces of information are stored in the photo if you have location services enabled on your phone. And so really, you just have to take a picture of the turtle and then a picture of the tag if it's got one, and you have everything that you need: the date, the time, and the location. Okay, what do you do next? The next thing you do is you send your observation data to Bay County Box Turtle Project. There's 2 primary ways to do that. You can text the information to the Turtle hotline, or you can enter the data directly into a Google sighting form. In order for the Google sighting form to work, you have to have a Google account, which a lot of people have, but not everybody. So if you don't, then you can use the Turtle hotline or just use the Turtle hotline. The data comes to us, and then a team member will enter the data that you've sent us into the database. Before I go further though, I just want to say, we're just asking that you please do not detain the turtles that you encounter and bring it home and then try to schedule tagging with us, because we just don't have the capacity for that right now. And as you see with the number of sighting reports that are coming in, it's just not something that we want to entertain at this time. But the picture and the information here is all we need to make this project work. Instead of detaining the turtle, you let it go about its merry business. And let's get to the back to how to submit the data to Bay County Box Turtle Project. And this is something that you can do if you want to walk through this with me right now, but there are links to this information on our Facebook page. I'm not a big Facebook pager, but this happens to be a very useful tool for our project. So all you need to do to find the page is to go to Google and search Bay County Box Turtle Project. If you do that, our Facebook page will come up, and this is what it looks like if you click on the Facebook page. And perhaps, the younger generation here knows what I'm talking about when I say that if you go to then the posts and then and have a look at our posts, there'll be a pinned post. The pinned post is always the top post. It'll always stay at the top of all the posts. And this is a look at the pinned post. So this provides you with all the information you need for submitting reports and then some. The first link that you see up here is under how to report a box turtle sighting. And if you were to click that blue link right there, it's going to take you to this form here, which is the Google sighting form. The form just launches in your computer browser or launches on your cell phone, and you can bookmark it if you want for later access. But basically, you would enter your information into this form as well as upload the photos that you've collected and hit submit, and it goes straight to us. If you don't want to do the Google sighting form, you'll find the information in this paragraph for how to report that information via text message. There are, I said 3 neighborhoods, so there are 3 different numbers up here. And the first one there, 290-3969, is for Cove sightings. So what are these numbers? Who's maintaining them? These are actually Google Voice numbers. You may not have known this, but anyone can sign up for one of these numbers for free. So it's not actually my phone number. I'm not asking you to call me or text me, but you're texting this Google Voice number, which does come to my phone, and then I'm alerted, and all the information is there, your photograph and your information photographs. All right, once the data is entered into the database, it's then, you can then view the data that you've submitted or other people have submitted on something that we've created called the Turtle Mapper, which is really pretty cool. And I want to demonstrate this a little bit here. First off, this map that you're seeing here of this area of Florida has got a lot of little green marks on it. Those are turtle locations. And so not all the locations are in Bay County, right? I wanted to mention that since we started this project 3 years ago, there's another group that's operating in Gulf County. So their Gulf County Box Turtle Project, and their turtle sightings are showing up here in Gulf County. What I want to do is quickly demonstrate this Turtle Mapper because it's kind of fun. This could be opened on your cell phone or on a computer using the link that actually I meant to show you, but it's also on the Facebook page underneath the other information I was pointing out. A couple things you can do here. You can zoom in to an area. You can choose to some of these tabs. You can zoom to the Cove, for example, and have a look at all the turtle sightings that have been logged so far in the Cove neighborhood. You could zoom in a little further, and you'll see that the tag numbers show up on these turtles. If they're not tagged, they'll be labeled untagged, and so on. That's the first thing you could do. Another thing you could do is filter by sets of information. So let's say you have a particular turtle you're interested in, and its number is B488. So you can filter here using this tool, and here's a location of here's a map of the locations of this turtle, all the locations we have on record. Let me filter another way here, or sorry, on another number. I want to put in, so you can type numbers in too. Okay, there it is. So it immediately zooms to the extent to which these observations are in the database. And you see there's two records for this turtle. And this is kind of odd, right? That's why I'm showing you this. This turtle was originally tagged up in College Point by one of our team members named Danielle. It's given the name Ichabod. It has this tag number. Here's the photos that were obtained for it. Well, what's this record over here? So last week I was contacted by someone who was out working in a residence out on the beach, cleaning it up, and they found B452 in an aquarium in this house in a water, full of water. And he immediately recognized, number one, that it was a box turtle, not a water turtle necessarily, although they love water, just not being soaked in it all the time. And found the tag, or I guess looked us up on the internet and got in touch with me and said, hey, we've got this tag over here, this turtle, I'm sorry, over. And so we worked to try to get the turtle back to where its original location was, but the people who had relocated it decided to release it up here in Frank Brown Park. So again, this is just a case example of some of these weird things that happen when you start tagging turtles. They end up in different places, and unfortunately for this turtle, it's a long way from home. I mentioned not relocating turtles and always leaving them where they're found and so on. The reason for that is they have a very strong homing mechanism. And so if you do relocate a box turtle, it's going to try to go back to its home range and will wander, perhaps forever trying to reach that location and put itself in harm's way. So that's a reason why relocating box turtles is not a great idea. So all that stuff I was just telling you about, the turtle mapper, there's information here. This is how you link to the turtle mapper, and this is the instructions for how to use the turtle mapper, again, on the Facebook page. So when biologists study populations of animals, they're often interested in estimating some fundamental properties, parameters of these populations, such as how many animals exist in the population, what are their survival and mortality rates, and what is the population doing over time? Is it stable? Is it decreasing? Is it increasing? So how do we go about doing that? In brief, what we do is we take all of the observation records of marked animals and we compile that data into what's called a capture-recapture matrix, which I'm showing you here. And then we use models to analyze the data in the capture-recapture matrix. Let me explain what this is all about. So on the first column here on the left, you have each one of the marked individuals according to its tag number. And then the subsequent columns are the time periods at which we might be observing the animal. And for this example, I'm just labeling the time periods as years. So 2019, 2020, 21. So this first line here would be a turtle B525 that was observed and actually seen and reported in all 3 years of the study so far. Compare that to the next three turtles. You see that these would be examples of turtles that were marked or seen in the first year of the study, but then not seen in 2020 and 2021, okay? One thing that should jump out to you is how critically important it is to be able to maintain the ability to recognize individuals over long periods of time. That's the whole purpose behind tagging, is that we need to be able to recognize these individuals to be able to populate the capture-recapture matrix with the ones and zeros that are then analyzed to reveal the population parameters. You might be wondering what happens if a turtle loses its tag, or if you find a turtle that has no tag. Why should I report that to you? Let me explain. Just so it turns out, fortunate for us, that some researchers at Dartmouth College developed a image matching program that allows us to match photographic records of an animal over time using the pattern that the animal exhibits. Now, in this case, these researchers were not interested in monitoring box turtles, as the image might suggest here, but another group of researchers took this program, Wild ID, and they subject their box turtle data to it, their photographic data, and then reported that this program is highly effective at identifying and matching individuals over time using just the photographic records. So if a turtle loses its tag and then it's later encountered either by the public or by a team tagging member and we get a photograph, we'll be able to match it up and determine that, oh, that one had lost its tag and it is now going under this new tag number, which we can then back populate through the database. But in addition to that, if you report untagged turtles, we can use this program to match up records of that individual over time, and at which point it does get a tag, by a tag team member, it will then be assigned that tag ID. And so all of the photographic records that you can generate of turtles, whether tagged or untagged, are important to us. All right, in this part of the talk, I'm going to transition into just a little bit of the results that are coming from the project. And I'm not going to dig too deep into this because it's only been 3 years so far. And I think we've got a long way to go. I'm also just going to be talking about results from the Cove neighborhood, which is where the data has been compiled all the way up to date through the end of 2021. And we're still working on the other neighborhoods I mentioned. So far in 3 years of the project, we've tagged 313 individual turtles in the Cove, which is a pretty big accomplishment, I think. 22 of those tags have been lost, and that was determined through the use of the program Wild ID. And 16 of those have subsequently gotten a new tag, so they're now going by a different number. This is a look at trends over time. So 2018, 19, 20, and 21. So by the end of 2019, we officially started here. We had tagged 100 turtles, and then 2020, the pandemic year, we're spending a lot of time at home. I was out and about, and we got up to about 250 turtles tagged by the end of 2020. And by the end of last year, we were just over 300. Now, not all of these turtles are still alive, unfortunately. 14 tagged turtles and 14 untagged turtles in the Cove alone were observed as mortalities. And my only point to make here is that the overwhelming majority of the mortalities were the result of roadkills. Of course, turtles die of other reasons and probably are not being seen as frequently as a roadkill turtle might be. But nonetheless, roadkill represents a high source of mortality for box turtles. And it's something that I think we can work to avoid for the most part. Here's a look at the reporting trends over time. So this is a histogram of the number of reports received by Bay County Box Turtle Project for the Cove for the last 3 years. So again, there's a couple things to point out here that really jump out at you. Between November and February, box turtles are, for the most part, inactive. They do not hibernate, but they're not very active because of the cold temperatures. So it's not surprising that we don't receive many sighting reports during that time of year. But between March and all the way through the end of October into November, box turtles are very active, and their activity is just starting to pick up now. We've received maybe a dozen reports already this year of box turtle sightings. A couple other things is that you see that the sightings have really increased over time. And if you were living in the Cove back in 2020, you would have received this flyer in your mailbox. So this went out to every mailbox in the Cove, and it gives you just a quick summary of the information about the project and how to report turtles. And I guess it's not surprising that in the month the flyer went out, we had a really large spike in the number of box turtle sightings. But I'm pleased to report that box turtle sightings have remained high, and as you can see through all of last year, we're averaging anywhere between 50 and 60 sighting reports a month in the Cove alone, or about 2 per day. So that's two observational data sets that are inputted into the database on a daily basis. So we've really got a lot of folks out there looking for turtles, and that's great. How many reports did we receive so far? So we're over 1,250 reports in the Cove alone in 3 years, and I think that's doing really well. And this pie chart illustrates the contributions that you all are making to this project. So we have received reports from 193 unique respondents so far in just the Cove reporting box turtles. And the pie chart illustrates the number of reports that each person has been submitting. So what's the big blue wedge? Those are my turtle sightings. And the green wedge is my wife's, and the two of us are runners. We spend a lot of time in the early morning hours on the road, which is when I encounter like most of the box turtles. But I want to point out that even between me and my wife, we don't even account for 50% of the turtle sightings that we've received so far. And so I really trying to drill this point home about how important it is for the public to contribute to this research effort, because the data is really coming from you. So thank you for that. All right, one more thing I want to show you that is a data summary here. And this is a frequency histogram of the number of observations made of individual turtles. So I told you that we had 313 turtles tagged in the Cove, right? On the x-axis here is number of observations, and then the y is number of turtles. So this large black bar here represents the number of turtles that have only been seen one time. So nearly 140, or almost half the turtles that we've tagged in the neighborhood, have only been reported one time. This begs the question, why are we seeing these turtles only once and not again? Is it because they've disappeared? I don't think so. I think what's happening is that by and large, turtles are very secretive and shy. They don't like to be seen, and they operate in the early morning hours and in the evening. And so when we encounter a turtle, it's kind of like a chance encounter. We just happen to get lucky and see this turtle, got a tag on it, and then it wanders off and then it's not seen again. I think what's happening is it wanders into somebody's neighborhood, into their yard, their backyard or something, places where we're not, obviously going to look for turtles. And if that person that lives there is not looking for turtles or whatever, we may never see it again. So again, the point about your help with this project is that we need to get more people looking for box turtles and reporting them so that we can add some observation data for these turtles that have only been seen one time. On the other hand, there are a few turtles that are real conspicuous, and they happen to be seen a lot of times. So everything over here, these are individuals that have been seen 10 or more times. We even have one that was seen reported 20 times. And these are turtles that live in somebody's yard that is really eager to report them to us. And that's not a bad thing. But I do get the question sometimes, how often should I report a turtle if I have one that lives in my yard? And my general answer to that is once per quarter is good. Once every few months is good, unless you see something really interesting and unique, like mating behavior, nesting, sparring among turtles, or whatever you think it might be noteworthy, then please submit that report. But if you have one that you see every day, you do not need to submit a sighting report on it. But every so often is good. And I added Squirtle in here because my son's a big Pokemon fan. The other day was like National Pokemon Day or something. Okay. So when is the best time to spot turtles? This is looking across all of the records that we have in the database. So it's not just the Cove, it's the other neighborhoods. And by far and away, the best time is early morning hours. And it depends on the time of year. Like, so in the spring and the fall, when it's still cool in the mornings, it might be a little bit later. But in those core summer months, like June through August, September, you need to get out there when the sun is coming up. Not before the sun comes up, because turtles, they're not nocturnal and they are not active when there's no light out there, as far as I can tell. But they are super active early in the morning. So if you're an early morning person, you like to walk, you like to run, walk a dog, or cruise around in a golf cart or something, that's the time to find turtles, is early morning hours. As soon as the sun is a few degrees above the horizon, they disappear. And where do they go? They go into those sheltering places that I told you about early in the talk. And they will just hang out there trying to stay cool and hunker down and just chill for the rest of the day. And you will never see them unless you happen to be messing around in your shrubbery, cleaning things out, and you encounter one. Okay, another turtle story that I want to tell. There's quite a few that we have collected, but this is one of the more interesting ones. So 3 years ago, this massive turtle was encountered on South Bonita in the Cove, and I knew right away we were looking at something that is quite rare. So the largest Gulf Coast box turtle ever reported in the scientific literature was 216 millimeters straight carapace length. That's the length of the shell. This one came in and it was so big that the calipers that we had on hand could not measure it. It was larger than the calipers would extend. So we did the best we could, and we estimated that this turtle, which was given the name Andre the Giant, was within 1 millimeter of the world record. Now, I'm joking a little bit because box turtles only occur in North America, but if it just would grow 1 more millimeter or two, we would tie or break the world record of having the largest box turtle in North America right here in Panama City. Since then, he's never been seen again, though. So he was released. It was actually seen 2 more times that same year, but not seen again. I think he's out there. I don't know where he is, but we weren't able to claim the record with this one. But we did go ahead and get a larger pair of calipers just in case we found Andre the Giant again, or we found one even bigger. And we had to wait 2 years, but that did happen. So last summer, again in the Cove, my wife was out during a heavy thunderstorm, and this gigantic turtle appeared in the road. She brought it back to me. We quickly got the big pair of calipers out, got them on there, and this thing just crushed the record. It came in at 232 millimeters, which is over 9 inches long. And you can see if this was the previous record, we now clearly hold the record for the largest box turtle in the world right here in Panama City. So way to go. By the way, there's a video of me measuring this guy and getting excited about it on the Facebook page. If you want to geek out and take a closer look at him. Just about my last slide here, and then we've got some time for questions. So what can you do to help box turtles? 3 categories here. The first just has to do with being kind to the animals. So if you see a box turtle in the road, if you're driving, walking, riding a bike, even though I told you before, don't ever move turtles. This is the one exception to that rule, okay? Please move the box turtle out of the road. And how to do that, okay? You want to observe which way the turtle was heading if it was walking or just pointing, and you want to move it to the side of the road in the direction it was headed, and just put it off to the side of the road. That's as far as you need to move it, because if you do kind of put it back where it came from, it's going to more than likely try to cross the road again. And as I mentioned, roadkill is a source of mortality that would be good to help mitigate. Next thing is, again, never relocate a box turtle. I think I've explained why that's not a good idea. And that's the same reason we're not asking people to collect box turtles, bring them home, and hang on to them for us to tag. It's just not the best thing for the box turtles, for their health and so on. Third thing is let box turtles be wild. I'm not going to tell you that you cannot have a box turtle as a pet. In fact, I will admit that when I was a kid, I had one for a short period of time. But what happens is eventually you grow tired of caring for the box turtle because it's going to live for several decades. And so it's going to be released, and that's what's happening. And once you've removed the turtle from the population, it's no longer contributing, right, to the population. So just let the box turtles do what they're going to do, and it's fun to have them out and about. A lot more fun than trying to care for one as a pet. I can tell you from firsthand experience. Another thing you could do is protect nests in your yard, and that is what I'm showing you in the photograph on the right. So last year, I was lucky enough to have a female box turtle that is often in my yard create 2 nests in different parts of the yard. And what I did was fashioned a wire crate cage kind of thing to go directly over the nest location. And although you can't see it, there's a little portal right here and in the back, so that the hatchling box turtles can exit that after they hatch and then dig their way up out of the nest. And by the way, it takes up to 2 months for box turtle eggs to actually incubate in the hatchling to emerge from the egg and then come out of the nest. So I had some woman that was caring for a nest, and she was like, is the nest ready? Is the nest ready? I'm like, well, I really don't know. But she ended up digging in and found that the hatchlings had come out of the eggs, but they weren't quite ready to come out of the dirt, So anyway, it could take a long time for the baby turtles to emerge. So you just kind of have to be patient with it and let it play out. Okay, the next thing you can do is to get involved. So help educate your friends and neighbors about box turtles, why it's fun to try to conserve them. And you can also participate, of course, in Bay County Box Turtle Project, given the information that you've received today. And then the last area of ways you can help box turtles has to do with how you might manage your property. One thing you can do is to plant trees. So lots of good reasons to plant trees. You can add box turtles to a very long list of why it's good to plant trees, and nowhere needs it worse than here in Bay County after Hurricane Michael. So consider planting some trees. You might be safeguarding the future of box turtle populations 40, 50 years from now by doing so. The second thing is to provide or maintain, if you have these areas, of low dense ground cover, ground level vegetation. It's got to be stuff that the box turtles can crawl into and hide under they don't like to be seen. So it's got to be kind of dense. I don't think it really matters what it is, just that you have that kind of habitat feature in your yard. and maybe in a variety of places. I'm not talking about growing your yard up like a jungle or anything, but just if your yard is completely just mowed grass and a couple trees, you probably will never find a box turtle there unless it happens to be passing through. They've got to have a place to shelter down and hang out during the heat of the day. And if you don't offer that to them, they're not going to hang out there. Another thing to consider is to provide pathways for their movement. So box turtles, they want to move around to find food, water, and mates and stuff like that. And if they can't do that through your property, then you will not have box turtles there. I'll give you an example. After Hurricane Michael, I rebuilt my fence around the backyard, nice fence and everything. And within a few months, I'm like, where are all the box turtles? And then I realized, it dawned on me that, oh, it's because they can't get in the backyard anymore. And now I don't have any dogs or cats, so I'm not trying to keep pets in. I know that's a consideration for some, but if you have a fence that a box turtle cannot crawl under, you can create little turtle portals. You cut like a little area out of the fence, or dig a little area, a little trench and a little portal. And believe it or not, they will use those. And I've witnessed it with my own two eyes. They find where the portals are and they use them. Okay, the last thing is to consider adding some trees or some plants that will provide food to box turtles. And perhaps the best food source that I've seen so far in the Cove are mature pindo palm trees. Does everyone know what a pindo palm is? It's a type of palm that produces these bright orange berries or fruits in a large cluster. And then over time, those pindo palm berries fall to the ground and they collect around the palm tree. Box turtles love pindo palm berries. They're edible for humans as well, but they absolutely love pindo palm berries. And I actually did plant one in my front yard, but I'm waiting for it to reach maturity and start producing fruit. Those are just a few things that you can do to try to attract box turtles and help them out. So that really was my last slide. I'll leave you with some of the references, not all of them, that I made. This book here is a really great source of information on box turtles, written by a university professor at University of Florida, North American Box Turtles. Tells you everything you ever want to know about box turtles. And a couple other references here. And then if you want to contact us, you can message us at Facebook, or you can just email us at baycountyboxturtleproject@gmail.com. And happy Mardi Gras, everybody. With that, I thank you for your attendance and attention. And I think we've got some time between now and 3 for questions. If anyone has any, you want to talk turtles, I'm here to do that.
We've got one question from the chat box. Are there any suggestions about how to touch or not touch a box turtle? And she was wondering about salmonella concerns. Is that an issue with box turtles?
Okay, very good question. So let me address the salmonella thing first. I have read that turtles can harbor that bacteria and all. So I would say, if you're going to handle a box turtle, you make sure that you wash your hands and stuff before eating and that sort of thing. And if you have any open wounds or whatever, you probably, it's another thing you can do is just like not handle box turtles, because you really don't have to handle them in order to, obtain the data and participate in the project. That said, I've now handled many box turtles, quite a few hundred box turtles. And about the handling thing, the neat thing about box turtles is that they are very docile. They're not, very irritable. And I've never in 3 or more years of doing this had one even attempt to bite me. So that is not true of other turtles. So one time a person came up to me and said, "Hey, I jumped out of the car and I saved this turtle from the street. I was going to get run over." And I said, "Well, what did it look like? Was it a box turtle?" And she starts describing it. And I was like, "Well, that's a snapping turtle." I'm like, "What did you do?" Because you don't want to just go ahead and lunge for a turtle unless you know what you're doing. And most other turtles will try to bite you. So be careful about that. But box turtles are very cool and calm, and they don't try to bite people, which is really great. They're very easy to handle. You can come in from both sides of the shell and grab it like this. Most of the time, I would say 80% or more of the time, they're going to close up in the shell and remain in the shell for the entire time you're handling them. But then some are really wanting to get away, and they'd stick their arms and legs out and kind of, they're trying to go, and they may scratch you. So beware of that. So yeah, basically don't handle box turtles if you're not comfortable with it. Wash your hands afterwards, and you'll probably be all right.
There's one more from the chat box. Is there a
Yes.
definite way to tell that it is a box turtle from other species?
So the box turtle, without going into great detail, is the only turtle around here that can completely enclose itself in the shell. Pull in its head, arms, and legs entirely, so that when you pick one up, you cannot see anything but the shell of the turtle. Again, that's why it's called the box turtle. So any other turtle you might encounter that can't do that. Only the box turtle can do that. And that's probably the best characteristic I could give you.
All those markings, so we've seen that too, where people have marked them with white paint,
Yes.
stuff like that. So I was worried, so when you mark them, or when people mark them that way, does that make them more vulnerable to predators or whatnot, more obvious or anything?
Okay, good question. And I'm going to be completely speculating here because I don't have, I have not conducted studies on whether marking turtles increases their susceptibility to predation. But given just my background in biology, I would say this. The shell of the box turtle is actually keratin. Sorry, not the shell. As you can see with this specimen here, all right, underneath this outer dark layer is the bone of the turtle, okay? But what's covering that bone are these scutes that are made of keratin, just like the same material that your fingernails are made out of. And so I don't directly think that painting a small dot on the shell is going to, injure the turtle or anything. It's like painting your fingernails. However, there's really no point in doing that because the paint does not stick for very long. It gets chipped away and stuff, and it's actually just much better for you to obtain a good close-up photo of the carapace, submit it to us, and maybe at some point we'll get a small tag on it, and we can continue to track it that way. The other thing I'll say is that once they're larger than juvenile size, and they're adult turtles, they have very few predators, natural predators. Dogs will quite often find turtles and they'll gnaw on them. And that will sometimes result in some of the scutes being like superficially damaged. But honestly, I'm not really concerned about that because box turtles have this behavioral characteristic where when they encounter one another, especially during the mating season, they go into these aggressive bouts. It's really incredible to see it. Because again, I've never been even attempted to be bitten by a box turtle, but when males come together, they enter into these sparring episodes that can go on for hours, and you cannot disturb them from this. If you try to separate them, they come back together, and they're going at it like they're trying to bite each other and push each other, flip each other over. It's like a battle royale between box turtles, and all of that action ends up resulting in some scarring and sometimes even the loss of the marginal scutes. So I could show you photos of many turtles that no longer have the front marginal scutes because of this sparring that goes on. And then the males also bite the females during mating. So for some reason, and it's good, they don't bite humans, but they bite each other a lot. Well, again, thank you so much for coming. Thank you to everyone that's on the Zoom call. Everything was recorded as far as I know, and it's going to go up on YouTube at some point so you could share it with your friends. And, if you find a box turtle, please consider submitting a sighting report. We'd appreciate it.